So now we're going to listen to a talk about why many companies do things right, but don't do the right thing. The lead of tech department of GymBeam, the largest fitness e-commerce in Central and Eastern Europe, will tell us more about it. And by the way, he's a certified scuba diver to 30 meters. Please welcome Peter Urban.
All right, very unusual to be at the product-focused conference in Košice, and in front of many product people too, I guess. Well, I do remember a time when there were only really handful of product owners in IT companies walking streets of Košice, and now we've got our own conference, so cool, and kudos to organizers. Today, I would like to share with you some of our experiences, the problems we found and obstacles while shipping work we believe that matters. And I've got for you 3 stories from my company, from GymBeam. But first, I would like to start with perhaps how many companies do work, and definitely how GymBeam works at the moment. So it starts with the ideas, usually it does. Ideas usually come from 2 sources. It's either customers or it's either some kind of business owner or stakeholder. And already if these 2 sources are your only sources, it's a bit of a problem because you are missing out on your data. Your customers don't have your data, so you need to put in extra effort to collect it and to extract some interesting ideas out of it. And second, it's engineering. Because if the engineers are not invited to the table at the very beginning, you are again missing out. They can, push the concept further based on what the technology allows them. But, well, bit of digression. So now you've got ideas. We try to prioritize them in some kind of a list, which is eventually a roadmap. If you have many stakeholders, many competing, interests, you need to prioritize somehow at some point. So you introduce a prioritization process. It might be anything. It might be, people who is yelling the loudest in the room. It might be some kind of stakeholder poker. It might be one of the dozen prioritizing methodologies, whatever works for you. Then, usually you break down items from your roadmap into some kind of backlog. Usually product owner does that, creates epics, user stories. Not sure if it's needed anymore, thanks to the previous speaker. And usually the engineers come in this stage, and they participate on the designing the solution with the product owner. By the way, if you are not calling your ideas, but you call them requirements, that's another problem, as we do in GymBeam, for example, because requirement, unlike idea, already implies that it has to be built at some point. So you have a roadmap full of items that has to be built, and you don't have it full of ideas you might try or not try. So then you build the stuff, you ship the stuff. So my first story will be about the prioritization step, right there. So prioritization, first of all, there are sane reasons to do it. You want to make sure that you are working on the most valuable item for your company, most valuable thing, and your stakeholders want to have some insight into what is going to be built and when. What's the problem? We use ICE methodology in GymBeam. It stands for Impact, Confidence, Ease. How it works is you assign number from 0 to 10 to each of these 3 elements. You multiply it, and the product is the I-score. Impact, of course, stands for how much you are going to move some key metric, or what will be the impact, for your customer, for your line. I'm back again. Confidence is actually the certainty of which this prediction is going to turn to be true, and ease is the level of effort or cost you are going to invest. So easy by now. In GymBeam, we are usually considering very heterogeneous ideas from different corners of the company. It might be something like that. Are we going to add a new shipping method to our Polish store, DPD courier, or we can do maybe a social login with Google for all our stores, or we can integrate the new sorter in our warehouse. I'm going to walk you through scoring the first one, the new shipping method. So Poland is our 6th biggest market at the moment, and it's growing very fast. So we know, we are working with the hypothesis here that if we add a new shipping method to the checkout, maybe we will increase the conversion ratio by 1% at checkout. We know how many orders do we've got from Poland every week. We know how the size of the average order, so we can even put like a number to it. But at the end, it's a guess. It's a guess. I'm going to put 3 here because it is just for one of our markets. It's actually going to be at the end of the process, so not all the potential customers will see it. It will be just for people who are already checking out, and it will perhaps improve their experience only marginally because we do have some shipping methods there. Now, for the confidence, it's best if you use in your company some guideline or predefined scale that makes sense for your organization, and you can then easier decide, like, do we have some test results, or do we have launch data already, or it's anecdotal evidence, or it's just my opinion. Please note that the scale is not linear, so my self-conviction and my pitch deck doesn't count for much. So in this case, we don't have customer evidence, but maybe we can say we've got market data. It's not the first time we are adding a new shipping method. We know what shipping methods are the most popular in Poland, so I'll go with 1. The same goes for the ease meter. So again, if we have some guidelines, what we usually assign in my company, I can easily say, oh, it's like 8 man days usually for a new shipping method. So I will put down 7. So I got 3 for impact, 1 for confidence is 7. Well, multiplied 21. I do score all of the others. Now I have a really nice spreadsheet. I can order by I score, so honest day work of product owner done. Let's have a beer. So what's the problem here? The I score at the end sounds very convincing. It's a very precise number, calculated by multiplying 3 guesses. So never forget that. It's not science. It's just a hint. It helps us to have a look on the ideas and perhaps identify the most promising ones. On the other hand, ICE is really not complicated and doesn't pretend to be. It's even simpler than, for example, RICE, which adds reach to the whole formula. So it's easy stuff to have a first maybe step at what's important, what we should do. Also, interesting thing about ICE is it promotes the fast to production ideas. So maybe you have noticed how much ease plays into the whole formula, and it's by design because the origin of this model is experimental, so it always prefers like smaller, faster ideas you can try out, learn something and move on, as opposed to betting on bigger projects. Of course, what it can lead to is always, aiming for low-hanging fruit. So you have to again balance maybe projects like this with your strategic projects. So it's not a silver bullet. It won't work, or it won't do everything for you. And as you may have guessed, maybe the biggest problem with the ICE is the impact. So it's very subjective. 2 persons would give totally different estimates for impact on the same idea or feature. And we also found out that it's incredibly difficult to talk with stakeholders about the impact, or better said, to elicit some impact from them. They would say, oh, the idea is so great, I'm pretty sure, but it's really difficult to turn around the discussion to talking about the business problems and business impact. So here comes the ADN story. So how we implemented a new payment method provider. One day, idea or requirement like that landed on our table, and when product owner asked the stakeholder, so why ADN? It was, oh, because we saw it's really good for us, we will do it, and so on. But why? Oh, we've got a much better deal from ADN, so show us. Oh, okay, so it's not much better, it's somehow better. It will work in some countries better. ADN told us that their customer experience is so much better than the other payment providers, and the discussion went like this. We implemented it, and then we had a quarterly all-hands meeting where the whole company gathers and every department presents what they have done in past 3 months. And lo and behold, what the stakeholder presented: a perfect impact slide. Like they compared the conversion rate of the previous solution with the new solution for every country, and we learned that in Slovenia perhaps we raised from 66% to 90%. And we said, wow, how comes they were not able to do it before? But it turns out stakeholders are able to express their needs and business problems, and they are able to formulate them into impact. Maybe you can nudge them in the right direction, asking them, so what would you present to CEO? Works. So, Hygiene mentioned Marty Kagan, even with a nice picture. That was the bald guy. Marty Kagan, author of books Inspired and Empowered, and he is a huge advocate against any prioritization framework or scoring model. He says you are just guessing the impact, and you are guessing an effort and making a decision on combining them together, two guesses. So why we should bother with eyes at all? If you are familiar with planning fallacy, in '79 it was formulated as a tendency to underestimate the time, cost, and risk for the future projects. And 20 years ago, Kahneman and Lovallo extended it, that at the same time, the same people would overestimate the impact of the same actions. So this is where the ICE scoring comes in, because we are notoriously bad at telling bad ideas from good ideas. So what ICE does for us is that focuses the discussion around 3 key points, like what is it going to do for us, for our goals, what is the estimated effort or cost of that, and what evidence I've got that these two could be true. So this is ICE in a nutshell. Now, I would like to move to the next part, which is roadmaps, and tell you, I've got another story about roadmaps for you too. But first of all, what are the problems with the roadmaps? What we figure out? What you may have found? First of all, things on roadmaps quite often won't be delivered, won't be built. Why? It's just, simple fact of life. You are always behind schedule on your projects because you are notoriously bad at making estimations, of course. And then you simply have to push back some of the ideas or features you've got on your roadmap. Then, some new priorities will come in, and something new turns out. So it will also push down things that were planned on the roadmap. Nasty thing about this is that we do in GymBeam we believe it's very transparent prioritization, and yet our stakeholders do tend to ask us at very inconvenient times, like, why this feature isn't implemented yet? It was on the roadmap for a year ago. And it's the same people who would be, constantly prioritizing something else over that, but still asking, like, why is it not done? The second problem with the roadmaps, stuff which is on the roadmap, more often than not, won't have that impact, won't bring you the impact with the customers you have hoped for. And the third one is that even stuff that does work, it takes iterative process to get there. It's usually not the, usually not the first shot, and we are right about it. Usually it takes an MVP and a couple of iterations. So some of the studies done at the large companies, like Microsoft, Netflix, Booking.com, shown that at best 1 in 3 ideas turn out to bring some positive and measurable impact. In 2009 study, Microsoft writes that they are humbled how often others and they are wrong about the idea, about the product ideas they had. So we are just very bad at, separating good ideas from bad ideas. And when we do, we need the MVP, we need the iterations to get there. But this leads to frustration. This leads to frustration in large, well-funded companies with money to burn. In startups, it usually leads to running out of money. So, but we are a well-funded company, so stakeholders expect something else. Yeah, they will tell you, let's do MVP, right? The simplest thing, we really just want just ship something. We want to see how it works with the customers. They will promise you that, but once you do, they will be very disappointed. Either it doesn't work with the customers as they hoped, or it doesn't have no features basically. Only the basic use case scenario is covered. It's buggy. Not happy. Not happy. So you think you are doing MVP, but you have one shot at it, and you have to be on target. So here comes second story about the gift cards. I see some colleagues in the audience. Our gift cards story. So some time ago we thought it's a great idea to have gift cards or to offer gift cards on our eShop. So the kind of vouchers you can buy and give to your loved ones, and they will spend it on our products. So just before Christmas or somewhere in the autumn, we said let's implement the first version of it. Just the basics, hack whatever or hardwire whatever in Magento what is needed. We are using e-commerce platform Magento, and it will be all right. We will see how it performs. So guess what? Much more complicated than we thought. Once you introduce first virtual product in your eShop, all the hell breaks loose, because what happens in your processes in the warehouse, how they pack virtual product, what happens to your processes of cancels and returns, what happens to your accounting, how you put it into the books. So complete nightmare. We missed the deadline, we never shipped this feature. But comes the Christmas again, next year. Now we are well prepared by the last year's fiasco. So everything's in place, we have very thorough analysis, we have very good planning, no shortcuts this time, so it will be the engineering at its best. And what happened, completely new set of problems and obstacles arise. It actually took us 2 tweaking rounds to get it right and to ship it. So who is to blame, or what is to blame? In my opinion, it's actually roadmap, because the roadmap promises you that it will be there, it's doable, it will be on time, it's easy, it will work. So I implored help of Christopher Columbus here, who would testify to the fact that if there is a map and there is something on it, doesn't mean it will happen or it's true. So roadmaps radiate this confidence that if the item, idea or the feature is on the roadmap, it's got to come through our very sophisticated process. It's well thought through. it's very well planned, and it will work. It will have an impact. So a lot of clever people thought about it, discussed it for hours. It will work. So yeah, Sir Christopher thinks not all the time. I have bad-mouthed stakeholders in my previous segment. But I would like to stick with MVPs and move on to engineering team for a while now. In the last part of the process, which is build. Oh, sorry. Second to last is build. MVPs. In GymBeam, developers sometimes use term MVP behind product owner's back as a term for low quality, half-baked, not thought through solution that some business owner pushed on poor developers. So they hate MVPs. They say this is not the way how it should be done. But have you ever wondered whether is maybe your tech team the least agile part of your organization? I know that actually it's IT conference, so we should be the most agile part, but are we? Have you ever heard your engineering team ask you or tell you that building software is like building a house? You need a solid foundation for it, right? And therefore, we need to know in detail how the product will look like in 3 years, so we can now prepare the foundations for it. So this metaphor has been with us since forever, but it seems to be growing on popularity, right, recently. So we should build solid foundations for the house. It's just like software. I have to admit, I passionately hate this. How the heck does structure designed to withstand centuries remind you of software project? Or how does it remind you of the e-shop we are trying to build? So does anyone talk to the construction workers after the hey, so let's move up this window a bit up. We will add 2 more over there, and we will have a staircase, well, up there instead of here. So building software is not as building houses at all, in my humble opinion. And by the way, when engineers say we need to build solid foundation for the house, they most likely mean something like this: foundations for a stadium, which could support a house too, but any other fancy idea you may have in next 5 to 10 years. So this is the engineer's idea of MVP. And well, now is the time to take also a bit of blame and talk about the product owners. This is our idea of MVP, right? So, by the way, these things really exist. It's Habitat 67, I believe, in Montreal. So what is happening here? Well, house is working, you know, customers are flooding in. So what do we say? Let's build some more houses on the top of the first house. And of course, different houses, because we need to now cover different customer segments, of course. So yeah, where's the problem in that? I like that. So this is something that reminds me of how we implemented or integrated our conveyor belts in the warehouse for the first time. So for some time we were automating our warehouse. There is this automated conveyor belt, and at some point we installed also automatic scale. So automatic scale is a device that would, weigh every order and check whether weight is right. So either something is missing or not from that order. And we told developers, like, yeah, the first time we don't know anything about anything. Just do MVP. Try it out, and we will see how it works. So they did as said. They did a small PHP server. They put it actually on the physical machine next to the conveyor belt. And actually it worked, right? And we were like, it's not much riding on it. The worst case scenario, it doesn't work, so we are not checking the orders like we haven't been for years by now, so no problem. But then what? Then, of course, the time passes by. The automation grows in the warehouse. Now we have branches of the conveyor belt, and we have an automatic sorter at the end of the conveyor belt, and we are integrating the automatic printer. And, well, our PHP server looks like this, running on a shabby computer somewhere in the corner. So in a situation like this, more or less two options. Either complete rebuild, so the excavators come in and you throw away everything and build from ground up. Or the other option is, if your previous architecture allows for it, some kind of separate services architecture, you invest more in the communication of the services in between. In this case, we made actually both. So we replaced the PHP server with a serverless solution at Amazon Cloud, and which is by design built to host microservices or services-oriented architecture. So this actually makes developers happy, and actually makes for if you allow for it, it makes you can erase some technical debt. I don't want to go more into detail because I believe it will be covered in the next talk. Now, we have seen this slide for a couple of times by now, and you may start wondering, if we are doing Agile, why does it look like, I don't know, maybe water falling from step to step? Or if I showed this doodle to my 6-year-old nephew, would he say waterfall? So, well, we decide what we are going to build over there, and then go all the way down and ship it to customers, and only after that we get feedback, whether it works or not. So here, in this step, in prioritization, we estimate the impact, the effort. We make a decision based on that and design solution like that. Again, we implement it, ship it, and learn from customers. Here, we know we should be doing MVPs and iterations, but in fact we are not. We have always one shot, and we have to be always right, always on target. So if you think about it, we are using Agile in the bottom part of this picture, right? And missing a lot of what it has to offer, right? So at the end of my talk, I would like to share with you maybe a taste or a peek into what we believe will move us forward in the future, what we want to achieve, what we believe that is a right direction to go. So, not surprisingly, it's actually, let's move the Agile up the chain, right? To this part where it can make more impact. It's still all right to collect ideas, you have to, but it's preferable not to call them requirements, but call them ideas, and even better if you can call them or think of them like ideas for experiments. Well, you still want to prioritize your ideas because perhaps you cannot evaluate all your ideas at once. You would have many. But again, works much better if you are thinking about evaluating ideas for experiment and you are ending with a roadmap full of ideas to experiment, and then you go one by one and try to design hypotheses, you try to design some tests, you include all the people, and you measure the outcome. Another thing is OKRs, I think have been mentioned here a couple of times today too. So OKRs are often called an alternative to roadmaps. They are used by Google or LinkedIn for planning almost exclusively. They focus you in the quarter on the goals, not on the solutions. So they focus you on the goals. Frankly, we are using at GymBeam both. We are using OKRs and we are still keeping roadmaps. And what you want to do is, well, iterate over the ideas in this part. So if you do that, you are basically doing continuous customer discovery. You are doing lean startup techniques. You are doing customer development. So all the good stuff you actually want to be doing. And actually, to get there, you would need empowered product team. So similarly as Jim before me, I'm a fan of Marty Kagan, and I do believe that we need to move from a feature team to empowered product teams to achieve all of that. So empowered product team has been touched upon, so I won't talk too much about it, but it's the team that is tasked with the problems to solve, not with the features to deliver. And the team needs to be empowered enough to decide on their own on the solutions they see fit for those problems. The team needs to be accountable for delivering results on the problems, and not accountable for delivering output. And this is what we want to do. So future of the product development in GymBeam is a transformation from the feature teams to empowered product teams. And this is how we believe the product management should be done, how product development should be done. And this is how we believe we will ship work that really matters.
Thank you very much, Peter. I wonder about these roadmaps that you told us that you are still using it, but as I understood correctly, they don't work so much. So is it doable to use them still when they don't work, or would you like to change them completely for the OKRs you mentioned?
Well, it's perhaps very difficult to remove them from day to day, but what maybe we could achieve is really work with the roadmaps on a smaller and smaller scale. And I said a roadmap, if it's a list of ideas to try out or problems to solve, it could be actually a good thing. It's just like a pool of ideas, which you can always check, return to some, throw out some, and always figure out which one is the most valuable or has the most promise to bring some value to the company.
Mm-hmm. Could you maybe tell us what are you working on right now with your team or with your department?
Well, that's a very broad question because the IT environment in GymBeam is very heterogeneous. So we have got a couple of different systems we maintain, and we've got actually 6 teams that cater to different parts of the business and different systems. So every team is working on something else. But maybe bigger projects at the moment are that we want to do headless commerce, so it means separating or decoupling the front end and the back end. So we are building a completely new front end in React, in a new technology. And another one is that we are working on our warehouse management system heavily. So again, we are taking it out of the platform where it sits now, and it will be a separate system that will help us, to scale or grow better.
Lots of stuff to do. We've got some questions here in Slido. How it should looks like POC to MVP, product service, or product MVP POC, because sometimes it looks like product equals MVP equals POC.
All right. I'm perhaps not qualified enough to understand this question, but I'll try my best. So product proof of concept, MVP, product service. Okay, or yeah, difficult. Ideally, well, you would like to evaluate or validate your idea or your hypothesis, and it should be as cheap as possible. So some ideas you can validate even without proof of concept. So if you can do that, do that. and then do the least work possible. So if you need a proof of concept to validate your idea or product idea, then go for it. If not, but always try to be a little bit creative about how you can test the idea.
How often you refine a roadmap?
Well, we do it at the moment on a monthly basis. So we plan our OKRs on quarter basis, and we refine the roadmap with stakeholders every month. We have prioritization meetings where we are checking if something changed.
When experiments don't work out, do you remove the feature?
No. Mostly no. It's got to be very old features or ones no one is really using. But that's the part we are not very good at yet. So we are not, as I think I mentioned that, no, I didn't. Anyway, we don't measure the results of the impact after we ship something. And thank God, so we can pretend like nothing happened and go about our job. But we definitely should, and I would advise you to.
Thank you very much. Are you staying here with us for the panel discussion as well?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that was the
will.
invitation. Thank you very much. That was Peter Urban from GymBeam.